You mentioned Julius Caesar, and I want to talk about that too, because I think my next point was to talk about how even with these systems, right, even building these systems and having the best of intentions, they can be corroded by individuals.
Yeah.
Now let's focus on individuals that kind of show how these systems flow.
Yeah.
They show how these systems don't really match up. So with Julius Caesar, talk to me about his rise. Talk to me about a little bit about him. You don't have to go into his whole history, but talk to me about how he shows the instability in the system, especially maybe you could start by when he crosses the Rubicon River.
Yeah.
And then like just shows that like makes that decision, his troops have to make the decision between are you with me or are you against me? And that splitting of the Republic kind of is the first kind of like chip in the arm of like these ideas that you have.
Yeah.
They don't really work in the reality of the cold, fresh air.
Yeah.
You know, so it's like, how do you upstill that when someone like Julius Caesar is coming after you and all the thing that you love?
I mean, I'm gonna have to rug pull you a little bit there, because I would say if you want to look at how a single person can erode power and can like, you know, like how this can be possible that soldiers choose a single man over the state that nourished them and raised them. You have to go even further back than the Rubicon crossing, because at that point it was already too late, man. Like at that point the soldiers were already like, yeah, let's do it.
He's that guy.
I mean, the thing is, when it really started, like the erosion of the Republic and the possibility for someone like Caesar to exploit it was with the Marian reforms in, I think, 106 BC. So quite a few years before Caesar ever came onto the scene. So the Marian reforms, essentially, they were introduced by a guy named Marius while he was a consul. Marius was also a general and like a military man, like most kind of politicians were in Rome. And essentially, his reforms were meant to address a declining state of the Roman military. So the Roman military up to this point was very much like, you would go to the military if you had property, if you were like a farmer, if you were somewhat wealthier than the landless poor, the masses. And you would go to the military as like a form of civil duty, of service. You would provide your own gear. You would buy your own gear. And you know, usually it would be very short campaigns, so you could just come back to your property and you know, man your farms and grow some crops and whatever. So it was just like this, like the ancient Greeks, kind of like it was just a civic service that you had to do, and it was a point of honor, a point to kind of like protect your community. But it wasn't anything beyond that. It wasn't like a profession of soldiering, right? The thing is, this went well up until the Roman Empire started to expand and expand. They had more campaigns in foreign lands, military campaigns, that would take longer. And if you were a farmer, you know, you had crops to take care of or whatever, you couldn't be away that long. And you know, the military didn't pay very well in Rome as well, so you know, it wasn't necessarily something that was like economically feasible if it took a toll on like your actual day job. So the military numbers dwindled. The Roman military wasn't able to like keep up with the demand of conflicts that they were having. So Marius was like, okay, you know what? Up till now, the poor, like the propertyless classes, again, the majority of people, they were forbidden from joining the military. Now let's make it legal. And he didn't only make it legal, which you know allowed them to get a salary and whatever and have like a stable job, I guess. He also introduced the fact that Rome would provide military gear for its soldiers. So like a modern military, essentially. You wouldn't buy your own armor and you wouldn't buy your own gear. No, the state would provide for you. The state would train you, the state would keep you in barracks, and it would give you armors and weapons, etc., which was a fairly modern idea. It was a very new idea at the time. So this led to Rome developing this kind of standing professional army where you would have soldiers who would serve for years and years and years and years, because this was now their day job and this was how they would, you know, just conduct their whole life. Now, the thing is where it gets really difficult. The reason why this was the turning point for the Roman Republic was for two main points. The first point was that the military still didn't pay very well. The salaries weren't very high, and even if you were a propertyless poor, sure, you got food now and you got like a salary, but it wasn't very much, and you weren't like rising up through the ranks a lot, and you know, like it wasn't something to sustain yourself or a family on. So the soldiers would actually have to rely a lot on booty and plundering to get more money in, to get more income in. And like, especially when you're on a foreign campaign and you're somewhere in Central Asia, right? you're not going to have very good supply lines. So like your pay, your supplies, your food might not even arrive.
Absolutely.
So like you were alone out there, and the only guy who was responsible for feeding you and paying you was your general. The one guy at the top of your army who would tell you, all right, your pay is down, like you guys are not getting paid, you guys aren't getting any food, let's raid a village. Let's raid a town, let's plunder some stuff, and let's distribute it equally among each other. So that essentially the state stopped being the sponsor of these soldiers, but rather the generals themselves who would kind of like come up with methods to like pay their soldiers. Which first of all shifted again the loyalty, I guess, from a soldier from the state to the guy who's actually paying their bills. The second thing that really toppled the entire Roman system was something that Marius did, I would say out of good intentions. Because when he came back from a campaign, like in 102 or 101, I don't know, he really wanted his soldiers, and especially the soldiers who were poor without property, he wanted them to be taken care of. So he wanted them to get a piece of land from the Roman state. Because he was like, look, all of these soldiers, they joined me on a campaign, they're loyal, they're good soldiers, they're good Romans, yet they have nothing. And when they come back to Rome, they will just disappear into the crowd. I mean, the living circumstances were also miserable if you didn't have any property in Rome. If you lived in Rome and you were poor, you would likely live in a slum that was built of like little wooden huts. And every other year or so, the Tiber, the river in Rome, would swell, and those little settlements, those little slums, they would be wiped out because there would be a flood, and then all these wooden shacks would just be flushed away. So essentially, living in Rome as a poor citizen, you would literally be like today we wouldn't like, you know, today it would be equivalent to like a homeless person essentially on the street, or an unhoused person, I guess is what you would say. Like, you know, because they didn't have a stable home, they didn't have a stable income. There would be hand in the mouth living essentially. Like they would have like day jobs. So Marius didn't want his soldiers to go back to this, so he started lobbying the Senate to like give land to his soldiers, and he started to really, you know, gain traction, I guess, gain popularity. Finally, the Senate actually said no, but Marius went to a tribune, like we just said, like tribune circumventing the rich people, and the tribune passed a law to give Marius soldiers land. And Marius, like, the thing is, this is very good-hearted of him. I can see it. Like there were good intentions in there. But this is really where things started to go downhill really, really quickly, because it came now a demand from every single soldier and every single army to be like, yeah, look, I'm propertyless. Why don't you, general, get me some land when I come back? And like, you know, like the generals, they were like, if they could promise their soldiers something like this, they would have their loyalty until death. Like those soldiers would march anywhere for them, because like it wasn't just pay and plunder and booty that the general would then give them. The general would give them a future. Like if you had land in Rome, you were someone.
Your life would be changed, absolutely.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You had a voice in the Assembly of Centuries. You could vote. Your vote would count more. And, you know, you would raise your children in more wealth, and you wouldn't matter. So like, this is really the turning point where soldiers started to stop trusting the state that wasn't taking care of them very well, and started trusting the generals who were taking care of them quite well, actually.
That's so fascinating. That is so fascinating. And you see like these things, like you said, you know, good intentions, and like, who knows what was the right thing to do, you know, maybe in that time he needed to do that because all this whole thousands of people in the army that were actually expanding the empire, they kind of deserve something from it, you know, if they're like making this Rome idea of Rome.
And I mean, arguably no one deserves to live in the circumstances that a propertyless citizen in Rome would have lived in.
Absolutely. And so when it comes to that turn, I think the reason I was fascinated by that kind of like crossing the Rubicon River moment was because I think maybe just how it's been depicted in like, you know, shows and the idea of it, it was like that turning point, that moment where that all of those seeds would finally come home to, you know, roost. Almost like,
exactly.
It's like now you make this decision, where does your loyalty lie? And like we spoke before at the beginning about how the idea of Roman Republic was that we are for the people. You know, we don't really matter. It's about more your civic duty, your responsibility to the idea of Rome. And that kind of being split, and even the idea, right? Let's even go into it deeper, right? Even the idea of like someone like Julius Caesar choosing to do I'm actually going to come in and invade.
Yeah.
He must be in his head thinking, I'm actually doing something for the idea of Rome.
Yeah.
You guys are corrupt, and you're doing your system is. I'm actually going to do this.
I don't know. I mean,
Let's talk about it. Do you think Julius Caesar did it because he had good intentions, or do you think he was exploiting a broken system?
I mean, that's the $1 million question. Because, Julius Caesar, most sources that we have on him were written by himself.
A little bit biased.
So there's a little bit of bias there, you could say,
The best of intentions.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I'm just a regular old dude,
Just trying to help
a
out,
red-blooded Roman drinking beer on my porch, all that stuff. Like, he's a very, very effective writer, very effective kind of like propagandist for himself. So
Absolutely.
I don't know if he had good intentions or not. I don't know if he was just out for himself. I mean, he did crown himself dictator for life, so I don't know, maybe that says something about him. The thing is, with Julius Caesar, what makes him interesting is that before he was a military leader, he was also a politician, and he spoke in the Senate, and we have some records of him in like debates and the Catalan conspiracy as well. And he obviously knew all these people quite well around him, knew all these people who served in the Republic. I don't know if he was some kind of psychopath who just thought of everyone around him as a piece of meat, or if he was like, yeah, those are my friends, and like even though I want to cross the Rubicon and like topple the Republic, I guess, maybe I don't want to kill everyone. Maybe power isn't everything to me. I don't know. What we do know is that he chose clemency when he got into power, so he pardoned, I guess, everyone and chose not to kill anyone. Which got him killed.
What do we think? Because I know we spoke about this too, right? About how the idea of like him not killing his enemies actually came back to haunt him because they literally stabbed him in the back, and how his predecessor, or
Sulla, yes,
learned, and I think that if that idea of like having that much power and having to make those choices and those decisions, even if I guess it depends on the environment that you are, right? Even if you have the intentions of these are my friends, I've known you, I'm not dealing with you. I'm just doing this for political reasons. And then you get stabbed in the back for it. It was actually the better thing to actually kill everyone and get it over and done with, like you've mentioned. What do you think? I
mean, that's the thing, right? Like, I mean, look, just because we're Gresham College related as well, but the Melissa Lane, Professor Melissa Lane, spoke once about this when she talked about Machiavelli and Nietzsche. If you kill everyone to gain power, will you automatically have to become a tyrant, or can you maybe do something good out of this terrible harm that you're doing? The thing is, with Caesar, undoubtedly Caesar just thought he could just get away with it, and that he was just so smart and powerful and so charismatic that would you
want to kill me?
No one's gonna kill him, and especially not his adopted son. Who's gonna kill him? The thing is, if we look at other examples, if we look at Sulla before Caesar and Augustus after Caesar, those people killed quite a few people when they were in power, and they had much more successful runs than Caesar. Sulla is interesting because he kind of goes into what you were asking. Sulla killed quite a lot of political enemies. He killed quite a lot of senators. And then he claimed that he had saved the Republic, and he retired. So Sulla didn't even want to be a dictator for life. Sulla just I guess, really thought that he was doing something really great and that he was saving the Republic by killing all these people. Now, obviously, that was in the 80s or 90s BC. And he didn't save the Republic. In fact, things got much, much worse. But at the very least, if you go in and kill everyone to seize power, it'll ensure that you will be fine personally. Your personal security will be protected because no one's left to pursue you. So I guess I don't know. When Augustus and Mark Antony, Octavian at the time, Mark Antony killed everyone. They were also fine. The only threat to them was then just the other person. So. I don't know if killing everyone who kind of opposes you, if you can then actually build something that is still democratic and that has still value. I don't know if it possibly, if you grab power and kill everyone who opposes you, if that locks you into a path of tyranny and you just have to keep killing people and putting people down. I mean, after all, Augustus, when he got in power, he also had to beat down another coup at some point against him, another conspiracy that was trying to assassinate him. Because I guess that's just how your life then goes. Like you always have to look over your shoulder.
Absolutely.
So yeah, I mean, wait, did I answer your question?
You did, and I think the idea was, when you were speaking, I'm thinking about it now. It's like, because imagine we take that idea and bring it to today.
Yeah.
Imagine there was some president out there. He became president because he killed everyone.
Yeah.
There's always the parliament. You got there, everyone was dead.
Yeah.
And he's now the dictator. You might say some Russian president might be doing that behind the scenes, but like the idea that's how you start. Even if you have the best of intentions, we know where you're willing to go.
Yeah.
We know what you're willing to do for that power.
Yeah.
And I think that kind of puts fear in people, and that fear kind of permeates. And you can create whatever house of cards you want on top of it, but it will come crumbling down because like the people will have fear, or like the people that are coming after you will have this idea that, I have to make sure that I say the best thing, or and you don't instill love or, whatever, if that's how societies are built from the ground up.
Yeah.
You don't instill like people looking after each other, because it feels like any, dissension will be put down.
Yeah.
Even if that's not the case, even if you just, those are bad people, I have to get rid of them to actually start this like 1,000 years of like, I guess, peace, whatever. It's very, very difficult for that to happen. I think for me, it makes me question how, especially in democracies, let's go back to that a little bit and bring up Augustus or Octavian, whichever one you want to call it.
Sorry, for anyone who isn't familiar, so Augustus was the first emperor of Rome, but before he became emperor, his name was Octavian. So yeah, that's the person we're referring to.
Absolutely. He was the adopted son of Julius Caesar, so that adds a whole other thing to this conversation. Yeah. But yeah, so him, for example, when he comes, like you said, he comes to power, kills all his oppositions, starts this kind of like idea, very, very good speaker, very, very good like propagandist, starts this idea of like, we are now okay, everything's gonna be okay, I'm gonna steady the ship. And now he has this idea, like he preaches this idea of like the republic is still there, there's a Senate, but everyone knows he's the one that runs it because and Mark Antony kind of like destroyed everything. So it gets me thinking about how power will also disguise itself in order to placate the masses. And I think that's to link it to what we have now. So I want to make that jump too. How like people at power, people on top of the massive amount of power, if they know, okay, like if I just present myself as a democracy, it's actually better. I would actually have less likely people to try to bring me down because they think I'm a tyrant. What does that say about how power can like disguise itself in democracies and actually maybe hurt it in the long term?
Yeah, I mean,